Okay, so I haven't made a video in a while. People have asked for full ring videos, so I thought I would oblige. Um, if you can't keep up with the action, I don't know, rewind the video, I guess. Um, it's really hard to play full ring without having a bunch of tables because there's so many spots where you just spend minutes upon minutes folding. Um, why 25 and L full ring? Because I haven't played full ring in a considerably long time. I have no idea how full ring plays anymore. Yeah, I can open this. Um, so that all being said, here we go. Um, try and get this up to 12 tables. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. Currently at 11. I get called here by some unknown uh, in early position. Doesn't have a full stack, so I can assume that he's either a short stacker and is slow playing some kind of really big hand, or okay, so he's on multiple tables and appears to have not the slightest clue of what he's doing, or maybe he does, I have no idea. To be honest, I've only seen this hand and this hand against him, so um, we'll have to see what happens, I guess. This could board to bet once and then give up on. You can get all worse pairs to fold, and if he calls, then your hand is obviously not very good. That's another great board to bet once. Fold all over cards with no pair, and fold. Actually, probably won't fold any over pairs, but protect your hand against things like king queen or like king queen, queen jack, or under pairs that you don't want to give free cards to. That will, in all honesty, probably take the pot away from you if you check that flop. Just a standard bet, obviously. Now that I think about it, I haven't played poker in about 3 weeks. Been having some troubles that hopefully are fixed. In all likelihood, probably not, but I have enough clarity at the moment to play internet pokers, which is nice. This guy raises, don't know anything about him. Uh, no reason to 3-bet here, just call. Hopefully induce a multi-way pot, and hopefully no one squeezes. I really think this guy has the coolest screen name. At these stakes, I can squeeze here. In fact, I think I will do that. Uh, just make it 375. Here he checks. Super unlikely he'd check an overpair or anything with equity, so I'm just going to bet here and probably get it in if this guy does anything. I mean, there's a possibility he's checking like eights or ace-king there, so I bet pretty big. Um, just to try and punish him for making a incorrect play, but he appears to want none of it and just check folds. Um, yeah, I can open up to that on the button. I could 3-bet here. I don't know enough about him. My image is pretty bad, I would assume, after just 3-betting. Here I could, same logic, but I don't know anything about this guy, and just fold. He could be opening really tight from the cutoff for all I know. But that is definitely a possibility to 3-bet. Not obviously the most ideal hand in the world, but um, at these stakes you won't find a whole lot of people who will play back at you without actually having it at these stakes. Um, Here I flop an open ender. Super unlikely to be check raised on this board because likely most people would just 3-bet a good ace pre-flop. So if I do get check raised, it's by some kind of monster draw or 2-pair plus. And if I get called, then I have outs. I have 3 hands on this fellow. Don't know. He doesn't have a full stack, and I have a suited hand. Just call and probably check fold this board. I get 3-bet here. No reason to 4-bet. He bets reasonably big here. I could call, and I think I'm going to do that here. I'm just going to fold. There's a lot of bad turn cards for my hand despite me having middle pair. Just like any king, any club, any 10 is not necessarily a great card for my hand. Here he checks. I'm not entirely sure what that means, but I'm going to bet here once to try and protect my hand against overcards and maybe shut calling a flush draw or something. And if he calls, I can just shut it down on turns and rivers. Here, just dirty standard steal and the hijack, open up ace deuce. Pretty standard steal here with any ace, get 3-bet, and just great sizing by this guy. They get called by what seems to be a fishy player. We're short-handed, where am I? I'm gonna make a reasonably tight fold there. Go ahead and c-bet once, and he insta-check folds with the button, so it's pretty clear that guy's probably a fish of some kind. Here, open up ace king of spades. Don't know anything about this guy, just gonna fold the 5-7. If I knew a little more about him, then I would consider just stealing with that to like a near min raise. But as is, I don't know too much, so this guy's probably a fish, overlooking the cutoff. King Jack here, against an unknown. I have the button, and my hand is suited. Pretty standard call, especially against what seems to be a fish, though I can't quite be certain. If I knew he was a fish, I would consider 3-betting, because he'll call with worse, because it's opening worse fish. Here, go ahead and bet once, small two-way pot. It's hard to continue on this board without a queen. Or it's hard to continue without at least a queen, but I get called in 2 spots. Super unlikely at least one of them has, super unlikely this guy has at the very least king queen, and possibly a set. This guy's range is far wider because he was the first caller. That being said, just check fold here. Even if I hit like an ace or a king, I wouldn't be thrilled about it, to be honest. He bets into someone who overcalled, which is super, super strong, and I'm going to 3-bet. I'm going to 3-bet ace queen here. Just fold this. So I get cold called and then overcalled. Flop top pair, top kicker. It's not a hand to be super thrilled about, but I could have raised here, and to be honest, I'm not sure why I didn't. Here, go ahead and bet, and then not fold to any action. Really curious what happened in that queen's hand. Maybe that ace queen hand. I guess everyone folded. I'm obviously not folding the queens and hearts to any action. Like, I guess if he like showed me his cards and then went all in, I might fold. But that's the only way he could do it. Shit, I didn't mean to implement that. So thankfully, my misclicks are open limping when I mean to fold, and not something like cold calling a 3-bet, which is fortunate. That being said, there's no reason to bet here whatsoever. I mean, justifications can be made, and normally I would call here, but this guy is just so goddamn short. This guy opened from the cutoff. I'm 3-betting a lot. I'm probably just gonna get it in if he does anything. Raise this guy. People's confused by my Kung Fu style, but it's okay. Sometimes you have to 5x it when you only have like 16 big blinds. That's okay. Flop a gut shot here. I don't even know if there's a reason to bet this flop, to be honest. I mean, I guess you can make the case that I'm value betting king high against like queen high and flush draws. But it's kind of thin. Mostly I'm just betting there, so he can't bluff me out of the pot on the turn. After isolating this fish very loosely with the 8-6 of hearts, just bet once here and give it up. Unless I turn like some wicked good card, and there are a few wicked good cards in the deck for my hand. I get min raise to just fold. The worst hand I would call there with if had I had an actual hand would probably be ace jack, maybe ace 10. I don't know if I want to bet here because I don't want to get jammed on. Actually, it doesn't matter if I get jammed on. I'm just gonna bet. If he goes all in, he goes all in. And I get, what is it with people with these stakes and check min raising? I can see how like that would get real frustrating for some people. Just getting endlessly like min raised. Let's see what people are linking. No real reason to call here. I could 3-bet here, and I think I'm going to. I'm trying to force people to play out of position against me in 3-bet pots, because eventually what'll happen is they'll get frustrated and they'll start making incorrect calls. I should have called their 3-bet there. That's a mistake. That's what I get for scratching my head when playing. Okay, so since I didn't have the intention of making this a 3-handed video, I'm just gonna close out that table. Like, I don't understand. Some of these boring games break up for no reason whatsoever. Just that I'm endlessly confused. I get 3-bet here. Table's short-handed. I could 4-bet here. I could call. Both are fine. I think I'm just gonna 4-bet. Yeah. When did you make it? 2. Just make it like 475 here. And if I get jammed on and he has aces, it's just unlucky. I'll call here with jacks. This guy checks. I don't have any reads on him. This guy checks too. I'm just gonna check behind him and check behind here. I get a reasonable flop for kings and that there's no queens or aces on the board. I'm gonna check back here again. I'm gonna call here with, and then I'm gonna call here because I have ace high. And my bet sizing here is horrible. I could have bet like 3, and if you have aces, you have aces. And I'm lucky enough to hold with kings, which is nice and fun. I could have value bet jacks there on the river. I'm not entirely sure why I didn't. I was more concerned with the king's hand, to be honest. Like I said, I haven't played in a really long time, and as such, my game is kind of rusty. Here, go ahead and lead this board. I get, what happened here? I get let into. Usually people don't lead all that loosely, and there's not a whole lot of draws you could have that he'd be leading here. I turn the nut flush here, which is cool. Like, I think that guy has at the very least like King Jack or something. And the big question here is, do I check raise all in or do I bet? And I think the answer is bet, and I don't exactly know how much he can call with like a 10 or an overpair, so I'm gonna bet something like 2 or 3/4 and hope he calls. Because to be honest, I really don't know what a fish has when he calls twice here, and I'm kind of hoping he just goes all in, but it's super unlikely. So he tanks a while and calls with what I can assume was pocket sevens. So I guess my sizing was good. If he's calling down that light, and I'm gonna move this. Here, I don't want to play bloated pot out of position deep, so I'm gonna call with jacks and proceed to play cautiously on a lot of flops. He checks. I'm gonna make a real thin value bet against pocket tens in a hand like ace 9 or 10-9, jack 9, things of that nature. No real reason to 3-bet here. He'll fold worse and call better, and I don't want that situation to occur. Here, just pretty standard. I can check call, or I can check raise. I think check raising will be the better option. He has to fold hands like, or he should fold hands like queens, jacks, tens, nines, all those paired hands that are currently better than mine, as well as some ace highs. I get led into here. I'm just gonna fold my ace king. But yeah, getting him to fold like ace high there and pairs less than a king is super important because, well, you have queen high, and if the turn goes check check and the river goes check check and you don't spike, it's pretty hard to win the pot with queen high. A lot aerialist. I'm just gonna bet here, and I don't expect him. Actually, I could have checked there. I expect him to. And the question here is, do I 3-bet or do I call? This guy seems to be a big fish, and I want to keep him in, so I'm just gonna call. He leads. The question here is, do I raise or do I fold? I mean, I can call, but then I have the chance of getting squeezed. I think I'm just gonna fold, I think. With that guy behind me and no backdoor flush draw, there's just like not a whole lot of cards that are good for my hand. I have like 6 clean outs. No, you can. There are plenty of arguments for calling there, but just being out of position against the pre-flop raiser when the fish leads on a board like that is just not what I would describe as happy fun time. Here, I can call here. I can 3-bet here. I think I'm going to 3-bet, for no particular reason, other than I like defending my cutoffs and my buttons. I have a reasonably deceptive hand that plays well post-flop if I do get called, and if I get 3-bet or 4-bet, I can just, fold. In general, a big leak I see a lot of people making is they cold call too much and they pick bad hands to cold call with. You should be 3-betting a lot. I say this, and like the disparity on some of my tables is huge, like 20, 13, or 19, 13 here, but small sample size, like over 30 hands doesn't mean too awful much. I could bet here, I could check. I think I'm just gonna check and fold. Now, I could check, I'm gonna 3-bet this hand too. Eventually I'm gonna get 4-bet, but I flop gutter to the nuts and a backdoor flush draw. Just go ahead and isolate this guy. Let's go ahead and c-bet normally. I c-bet a little bigger there because I don't want to, in particular, get bluff raised. He snap calls super quick. So, he has probably some kind of pair, I would say along the lines of nines to like queens. So maybe pocket sevens. I'm just gonna check fold here. Or a set. It's very possibly as a set as well. I river a 9, which means I now beat his ace highs if he did somehow flood the flop with a hand like ace king or something like that. I'm just gonna check here and hope he has like sevens or ace high. And I guess he had sevens or ace high. He had 6-7. So, I guess he's starting to get a little frustrated. Because 6-7 is not normally a hand I would defend to 3-bets. Something to just take note of. Here, this guy's, I could call here, I could 3-bet here. I think I'm going to choose the 3-bet. I flopped top pair against this guy. Last time he led, he had ace deuce on an ace high board, so I'm going to raise here and try and stack him. Here, just bet. Raising nines here, I could have raised nines here. I don't know why I didn't, to be honest. Here, bet again. Bet just to protect my hand here. I think someone would have bet an ace on the flop. If I get check raised with the ace jack, I can just fold, because he probably has 2 pair. I get raised really big, so I'm just gonna muck here. He's taking his time, so I guess he had like a really weak ace that he doesn't want to call down with, or he had like a king or something, maybe a bad flush draw. But when he leads, he certainly has some kind of weakish piece. Anyways, it's been about like 23 minutes, so I'm gonna start closing tables out now because there's only honestly so long you can watch a 4-ring video without wanting to claw your eyes out. But advice I could give people, I don't know, don't get frustrated when people min-raise you constantly, despite how horribly frustrating that can be. Here I could 3-bet, I could call. These stats don't really mean too much. He raises pretty wide from. Yeah, I'm just gonna 3-bet here. Here I can call here. My hand plays well enough on a fair few flops. I get 3-bet with King 8. This guy has shown the propensity somewhat to 3-bet lightly, however, I don't want to start a 4-bet bluffing war. On this particular board, no one expects you to raise the nuts. And I've shown, you know, some kind of inclination to be a little looser than most. Just raise here. obviously not the standard play to make. But if he's kind of frustrated with me, it's a good board to call or make a play with. Or if he has an overpair, it's pretty much guaranteed stack. Because in his mind, who would raise a 10 there, and full houses are hard to hit. Go ahead and bet here. Check back ace king high here. I have the best hand a lot. I don't want to get raised off my hand necessarily. I turn a flush draw, which is nice. Means I can bet this turn. I'm just looking to fold out lower pairs like 10s or 9s or a hand like queen 10. But anyways, I can bet this turn now that I've turned equity, and I can get some hands like 5s and 6s to fold now. The board double pairs, and I don't hit my flush armor straight, which is sad. Just check fold here. See if all the managers you can get in your hands. Anyways, action's dying down, so after, hold on, I gotta clear this filter that makes this unfortunate. So anyways, you should review your sessions from time to time, and in this case, just going to pull this up real quick, just like every hand. Above 3 big blinds, I guess. Where's replay selected hands? Start like at the bottom, I guess. Pretty standard, but actually these hands are boring. More onto these. So I get 3-bet. Table short-handed. Specifically, it has 6 people instead of 9, which actually makes a large difference here with kings. If the table had was 9-handed, I would be more inclined to think that if he had a hand like ace king or queens and chose to 3-bet them, he would fold them to a 4-bet because it's how foreign players think. Since the table is 6-handed and not 9-handed, I can more comfortably 4-bet my kings, knowing that if I get jammed on, it's not always going to be aces, where in this case, in the foreign case, it's usually aces when under the gun and under the gun +1 get it in. So anyways, I choose to 4-bet and he calls. His range for calling there is something like ace, king, queens, kings, and aces, maybe jacks. Depends if he 3-bets them. Sometimes he has like some bluffs that like he had pre-flop like ace 7 or ace like 4 clubs, tarts. Like ace 4 suited or like king 10 something, like 5-4 suited, things of that nature. People pick odd hands to 3-bet bluff, and then they call with for some reason. I couldn't tell you why. But anyways, on this particular board, I bet too big, to be honest. I can bet like... Actually, my sizing's fine, given that I don't have the king of spades. If I had the king of spades, I could probably bet like 375 here, and feel pretty comfortable. Knowing that my hand is well protected against every turn card in the deck. But since I don't have the king of spades in my hand, I chose to bet a little bigger, so that way if a spade does come on the turn, then I only have one play to shove, but to shove. Whereas if I bet smaller and a spade comes on the turn, I get jammed on him in a pretty awkward situation. Anyways, I bet like half-ish pots and I get jammed on. So again, he can have maybe queens and he can have maybe jacks, certainly queens, certainly kings, certainly aces. If you add in the times he has a flush draw sometimes, then well, it would already be a call if he could only have kings, aces, and queens, because you're flipping exactly against that, and there's dead money in the pot. If he has jacks sometimes, or like ever, it's certainly a snap call. And if he has a flush draw, then it's an even easier call. And I do call, and he has like one of the worst hands for me, my hand. Specifically, he has the nut flush draw into an overcard with a backdoor straight draw. Fortunately, I somehow fade every out in the deck on the river. Don't ask me how. But anyways, that would be my analysis for that hand. How do I think he played it? I think he played it fine. Um, I would have jammed pre-flop myself, because, like, what is he going to do if this board is rainbow, or if he doesn't flop and flush draw? He's just going to call one and fold. It seems ridiculous, but, yeah. Anyways, min raised by Fish, who appears to not have a great idea what he's doing. I'm getting a really good price and I have a suited ace, so I call. I choose to lead this flop because I don't trust our two player to bet it for me, and if I bet and then get raised, then my hand becomes more easier to play. And that I can decide if I have equity to call. Like, say I checked RR two-player bet and then lobster raise, then I'm in a really awkward spot even though I have the nut flush draw. Because even though I might have enough equity to call, again, for lobster's raise, RR two-player can come over the top and then I end up getting it in like three ways. With the nut flush draw, it's just not something I want to do at full ring. So I choose to lead this way if like our two player calls and the lobster raises, then I can call. Or like if I bet like our two player raises and the lobster goes all in, I can fold my hand pretty comfortably. Things like that nature, things of that nature. I'm just looking to give myself the most options that I can comfortably play my hand with, and leading by far is in this particular scenario the choice I want to make. So he calls. I get very fortunate. I turn the nut flush on the turn. I think at this point he has, like a 10 or something. This is what I thought during the hand. He had like a 10 or like ace king high or something like that. Or maybe some kind of middling pair. But mostly I thought he had the 10 or over cards of some kind. So I decided to bet again. I bet, reasonably big in that, a lot of the over cards have some kind of flush draw with them now. And a lot of his 10s will have a flush draw as well. Some of his middling pairs, I guess, if he ever has them, he clearly does because he had it in this scenario, has a flush draw now as well. The river bricks off, and I have to figure out what's bet. His hands like ace king high may call, but it's unlikely. Mostly I'm looking to get value here from like 10, A10, like queen jack, or not necessarily queen jack, like ace jack, or like king jack, something like that. Some overcards that peeled the flop. Um, and I have to pick a bet size. I don't think he'll fold a jack no matter what I bet unless I shove. I think he'll consider folding a 10 if I bet full pot. So, and he may call with like 9s and 8s, 7s, I guess, if I bet, and he won't call those full pot. So I elect to bet slightly under 3/4. And he tanks and tanks and tanks, and I guess I picked a pretty good sizing in this particular spot because he called and I win. In this particular scenario, a lot of newer-ish, inexperienced players would bet really big because they have a big hand. It's not at all the case. You have to figure out what your opponent has and then base your bet sizing off that. This hand, I isolated this fish fellow with King Jack of Spades. I bet the flop. A lot of worse will call. He may not fold a hand like a naked 10. He certainly will not fold a flush draw. There are plenty of worse jacks that will call as well. Um, and, he'll call with a queen, and that's fine. It's like one of the few hands I'm beat by that he has. He had ace jack in this particular hand. So, but yeah, I'm really not beat by all that much at this particular point. And there's a lot worse that will call, so I go ahead and bet for value. Same thought process on the turn. Five of spades really doesn't change all too much. There are worse jacks that will still call. Flush draws may not fold. The naked tens and nines may start to consider folding, but I'm not even going to pretend to understand what fish think, to be honest. They may call, they may not. So, anyways, I choose to bet again, and I get called, which is what I want on the turn. I want to get called. And then on the river, the flush comes in. Now he checks, or hold on. Now he checks to me, and I'm have the decision of to check or to bet. His flush draws have all now gotten there. His queens, I don't think he has a whole lot of them, but they were never behind. And his jacks might call, but I would have to bet pretty small. Tens and nines aren't calling. In the end, I end up deciding that there's not enough the amount of jacks he has doesn't outweigh the number of flushes and occasional queens he has, so I elected to check. And I ended up losing to ace jack, which is fine, obviously. When you value bet things other than the nuts, occasionally you will be behind. But if you're ahead against the range, then it's most certainly a bet. And I think I was ahead of his range on every street until the river, which is why I went the bet check route. Here, this is pretty early on in the session. I don't know if you saw this hand. I 3-bet the 8-5 of clubs against a steal and a short-handed table. This guy was running reasonably late time. I have a really good hand to 3-bet. I flop a flush draw. I elect to bet once. Why am I betting? I'm betting to fold out hands that are 8s or lower. Tens might fold as well. That's annoying. Sorry. It's my IRC beeper. I can get hands like ace queen and queen jack and ace jack and ace 10 to fold. So I elect to bet. I try to pick a size that would be reasonable that I would bet if I had a king. Because, when you're bluffing, you want to be able to bet a hand that, they can relate to. Like, oh, I would bet a king for this amount on this board. So I chose to bet this amount. And he calls. Once he calls, I think he has the occasional king, queens, jacks, and tens, and eights sometimes. And he occasionally has a better flush draw. Regardless, his range is pretty far ahead of mine. Once he calls the flop. On the turn, I get a very bad card to bluff, and that's his queens and jacks are less likely to fold now because they have a gut shot as well. Tens have gotten there. If he had the nut flush draw with like ace queen or ace jack or ace 10 of clubs, he is now certainly not folding because he has a gut shot, as well as his overcard, which may or may not be live. Anyways, so on this particular turn card, I elect to check fold just because of the range I assigned him on the flop grows exponentially stronger on that turn, and I can't rely on him believing that I have a king in order to make a bet here. Like, if he was a pristine hand reader, then, or a mediocre hand reader, then I would slightly consider betting, but in all probability I would end up check folding, just because this is such a great card for his range, and people don't necessarily think about your range on the turn, or at these stakes, or at any stakes actually, given my image. They just assume I'm full of shit all the time. But anyways, like I said on this turn card, a lot of his hands pick up gut shots with their pairs or not flush draws, so just electric check fold and give it up. Here, open it up with ace queen. I bet and I get called. Pretty standard bet on the flop. Here on the turn, I decide to bet again. Hold on, I guess I'll go back to the flop. Once he calls, his range is like some kings, some jacks, occasionally pocket fours. He'll have hands like ace 10, queen 10, ace queen. Occasionally he'll have like 10s, queens, 9s, and maybe 8s, because, you know, fish don't like folding pairs. So anyways, on the turn, I turn the nut flush draw, and I choose to bet. I'm betting here to fold out hands like queen 10, ace queen, ace 10, all the straight draws. I'm also trying to get a fold from hands like 10s, 9s, queens, 8s, and 7s, things of that nature. I don't expect queens to, or a king to fold in a certainly pocket fours, and a jacker is definitely not folding now. However, I do have equity against those hands, specifically a king and a jack. So I can price myself in here, so to speak, by betting pretty small here and just hoping he calls. On the river, the board double pairs. You can make an argument for betting here, but he's not going to fold a jack. He's going to raise you with a king. I mean, he may even call his fours because people are just stubborn like that. It's unlikely he's going to bluff a hand like ace queen or ace 10 or queen 10 if he even still has hands like that. So it's pretty just standard check fold here for those reasons. I end up not winning the pot, obviously. Anyways, that's how you review hands step by step. Just think about what they have on every street and think what they'll do with it. And that's how you do it. I hope you enjoyed this. Good luck.